Hey guys, welcome to another Road Pilgrim car review, and today we got the all-new Lexus LBX on review with us. So this is a pretty interesting car because there hasn't ever been a LBX before. So this is a kind of like an all-new model from Lexus, and does take the form of Lexus's baby crossover. So at the moment, this is probably the most affordable Lexus that you can buy on the market. At least in Singapore. I'm not sure about in other countries, but in Singapore, this is the most affordable Lexus you can buy today. So for today's review, we're gonna go check out its exterior, see how cute and how good it looks. Check out its interior, because obviously a Lexus, we expect a certain level of luxury to be involved with the interior. So we're gonna take a look at the inside and see whether or not this baby crossover does live up to the standards that Lexus have sort of always put out. And of course, we're going to go take it for a drive and see how it feels. But before we do all that, if you are a driver in Singapore and you're looking to sell your used car for the highest price possible, be sure to check out the link in the description box below, because through that link, we'll be able to provide you the best possible quote and valuation for your used car. Now, if you need an insurance renewal as well, if it's that time of the year, be sure to check out the other link in the description, because we can also help you to do that with some really competitive quotes. So without any further ado, let's get on with the review. Alright, so jumping straight into the review, this is the exterior of the Lexus LBX, and as you can see, this is a really smart looking little car. I think it's probably one of the best Lexus cars that you find on the market today. Obviously the rest of the model range looks pretty good as well, but the prior to the LBX coming out, the smallest model you could buy was probably the UX, and I think that wasn't so much of a looker. So it's really nice to know that the LBX has sort of taken the styling element to the next level, and I think this is really going to appeal to some of the younger audiences out there, because Lexus has predominantly been known to be driven by retirees and older people. So I'm really glad to see that Lexus has come out with something that could possibly appeal to a younger demographic, because if I look at this car, this might be something that I might have as a second car. I mean, visually it does look quite good, and check out those wheels. These are probably some of the nicest finished wheels I've ever seen in my life. They are a tad bit shiny, and if you do curb them, it's gonna be pretty obvious, but I don't think anybody sets out driving thinking that they're gonna curb their wheels, so that's that. Here's the side profile of the car. As you can see, very compact, and I think it's a bit like shoes, right? When you see shoes on the shelf, the larger the shoe, the uglier it gets. The smaller it is, the nicer it is. So I think this is a really good example of that across the Lexus range. Obviously, I think the RX is a very nice car, but right down at the lower end of the spectrum, this LBX here, I think it's got something really good going on. Not sure what you guys think about the LBX. Put your comments in the comments section if you have an opinion. I would be really keen to know what people think about this. So aside from the plastic cladding that you see around the wheels, obviously I think that alludes to a sort of a active, dynamic kind of lifestyle that the car could possibly bring to your life. I think Lexus haven't gone all the way down that spectrum as well, and they've still left some very useful bits of chrome around the car, very strategically placed, and I think it does help to give the car that much of a luxury feel. So although this is the baby crossover, this is the entry-level model, you still get quite a bit of luxury feels on the car. Towards the rear, you've got Lexus LBX here. I'm going to open up the boot. I don't usually do this, but I'm pretty curious to see how much boot space there is in this car. So for a compact car, obviously we're not going to expect too much from it, but still a pretty decent sized boot. There is quite a bit of a loading lip, if I'm honest, so this is not going to be the easiest boot to kind of load, but it does still come with very nice premium features like an automatic tailgate, so that's pretty cool. I'll let you admire the car a little bit more before we head in. There's a full length light strip, but I've actually turned off the car because the weather's pretty hot already, so I don't want the engine like emitting more heat than is already necessary. So there is a light strip around the back here, a full length light strip. And one thing I missed out mentioning, one thing I really like is the fact that the signature spindle grille from Lexus has sort of been incorporated into the entry-level model as well. So it does have some Big Brother vibes from the RX, you know, and the NX. This integrated spindle grille, I think very cool, very, very nice. And of course, you know, like I said, some very useful chrome bits around the front as well. And I think there is some level of attention to detail here, because if you take a look at the chrome bits of the car, there are some bits that are shinier than others. So the ones down by the fog lamps, these are a little bit of a matte finish, and then the ones underneath the logo, those are a little bit more chrome. So there is some diversification when it comes to the overall finish of the car, which I think is really, really cool. But aside from all that, let's jump into the car now and check out what the interior looks like. Alright, so jumping into the Lexus LBX, the driver's seat. As you can see, it's a pretty hot day. I'm melting from the outside. Probably shouldn't have worn black today, but you know what the hell. In any case, so this is the cabin. I have the car key here, so I thought I might as well just show it to you. So I am a huge fan of nice looking car keys, because I think a crappy looking car key just feels really poor to kind of own and hold, right? But with the Lexus LBX car key, it's actually pretty cool. It feels quite hefty, which I kind of like. I know there are people who want their car keys to be as light as possible because they don't want to feel it in their pockets, but I'm not a person that really puts things in my pockets. I usually carry like a pouch or a bag around, so most of the time the car key would be in the bag. And in this particular case, I think the car key feels and looks really good. I think that's really well done, especially this being an entry-level model. I must say I'm quite impressed. Looking around the cabin of the LBX, first impressions is that it does feel sort of in alignment with the rest of the Lexus models in terms of premiumness. You know, obviously we're not going to expect the LBX to be as luxurious as, say, the RX or a Lexus ES or something, you know, along that spectrum. We do understand that this is a little bit more of an entry-level car. In fact, at the time of this review, the LBX with COE retails for about 220,000. That's a list price, which is actually pretty competitive. Because you always kind of expect a Lexus to be on the higher end, higher spectrum of price. So with all your trade-ins, discounts, you know, there could be a really good chance that this car lands up below $200,000, which is a great bargain for anybody who has ever considered owning a Lexus, moving into that sphere of luxury Japanese vehicles, and never really thought about it, because the nearest option was probably, you know, back in the day was the IS was probably the cheapest car you could buy. But now you have a really good option here, and not only is it a really good option, it's an option that doesn't feel too compromised even at this price point. So generally speaking, if the first thing you touch is probably your steering wheel, right? And I must say, this feels properly nice and good. In fact, this is probably the same steering wheel that you get in higher end models as well. And you've got these aluminium pedal shifters that feel, actually, you know what, I don't know if they're aluminium, they might be plastic, but they feel really good, really tight. I don't know why you would want pedal shifters on a CVT, but let's not go there. I think that's a slightly irrelevant conversation. The fact that you have it looks really good, looks really sporty, ties in with the young persona of the car. I like that. One of the biggest differences you're going to see is that in the larger models, the infotainment unit is usually kind of integrated into the digital driver's display, but in this case, it's actually separated. So this is like, you have a full digital driver's display here, pretty standard stuff, pretty much what you see on the other cars as well. But this infotainment unit, this is like 9 point something inches. I don't think that's really important, but it sort of comes on or presents itself in a square shape. Reminds me of Blackberries of the past, which I kind of have a soft spot for. So I'm going to say that I kind of like the way this infotainment unit looks, probably more than the extremely large 14-inch ones that you find on the larger models. I've always found those to be a little bit too large, but this one kind of, you know, fits really, really nicely. Someone to switch gear here, I must admit, there is a slight hint of Toyota-ness in it, in terms of it's very functional and not so premium, like the temperature buttons here. They're a little bit thin, a little bit plasticky, but I think there is also quite a smart use of these like satin finished materials, and then which kind of cascades down into your center console here. And then what I really like as well is that the dashboard here, all around actually, including your door cards as well, these are done up with a sort of Alcantara or suede material, which does kind of elevate the experience a little bit. Not just, you know, in terms of touch, but visually when you look at your dashboard, you know, you can see it surrounding your infotainment unit. There is this feeling like it's a little bit more premium, so that's good. One cup holder here, I think that's one too little, but then again, it's a small car, so you know, we're gonna have to make some compromises. Is this a wireless charging pad? It looks like a wireless charging pad to me, but my phone is not with me at the moment, so unfortunately I can't test it out. In any case, center console here, you have the shifter or drive selector, and this is pretty standard stuff that you see in most Lexus cars. Now, the LBX is of course a hybrid, so it comes with some EV driving modes as well. So if you do have enough charge in your battery, the car will allow you to drive in EV mode only, which I can do now. And if you get the opportunity to do that, I will always suggest doing it, because it's actually really, really pleasant to drive in EV mode. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later on. But before, oh wait, I just spotted something. So the LBX comes with a heads-up driver's display. Really cool stuff for a car at this price point. I don't think many other cars have a heads-up driving display at this price point. So that's once again another bit of luxury that has been put into the LBX. Not sure if this is worth mentioning, but the LBX does inherit the push button door opening mechanism rather than the standard ones you get on most cars. And of course, seats are really comfortable, not much complaints as the driver of the car. Now, this is a rather small car and is built on the same platform as a very closely related Toyota cousin, which I won't mention what. You'll have to go and find that out yourself. But let's go jump into the back seat and see how small or large the LBX is going to be. Okay, so this is the rear of the Lexus LBX, and first things first, very nice squarish door shape, which makes entry a little bit easier, I guess. But this driver's seat is in my regular driving position. I'm 175 meters tall, and this is the amount of legroom that I have. So it is pretty tight for anybody my size to be in the rear. That being said, I think that most of the time, people who go into the rear seats will probably be people like maybe your wife, your helper, your kids. So they are not going to be 175 meters tall. So I think it could be a little bit, as in it definitely is not going to feel as tight as it does for me here. But just for reference sake, you know, headroom is actually pretty good. If you compare the leg room versus the headroom, there isn't really much space for me to slouch down. Good thing is that there are, like, the front seats are sort of elevated off the ground, so there is space for my feet to go underneath, which means that I can sort of really utilize all the space here. Thing to take note that there are no rear aircon vents in the Lexus LBX. Which obviously, if they did come with aircon vents in the rear, that would be, I think, at the right level of luxury that you would expect from a Lexus. But to be fair, it is a rather small car, so actually right from here, aircon vent is actually open, or the aircon blower is actually set number 2, second speed only. And I can actually feel the draft all the way at the back of the car here. So honestly, not too much to complain about. But of course, leg room is a little bit limited, given that this is, of course, the baby crossover of Lexus. So ISOFIX points are present, so you know you can put car seats in here if you want. But given the amount of leg room, I think these sort of like this car will probably be good for a car seat that is a little bit more compact or like forward facing. So if you're going to put a full-size baby carrier with an ISOFIX base rearward facing, the passenger seat would have to move forward quite a bit, and that's perfectly fine if your wife or partner is a small size person. But if they are not and they require the leg room in front, then something's got to give. So that's just something for you to take note of. It's not a given that a rearward facing full-size baby carrier is going to be able to fit inside here. That said, you know, I think in most cases, if you have a young family, you know, if you've got 2 young kids seated at the rear here, I don't think you're going to have too much of an issue. In fact, I think it's a really, really nice size for a car. And I'm just about to jump back into the driver's seat and take the car for a drive, and I'll tell you what I think about the car, especially how I think this car fits into Singapore, which I think, you know, as far as Singapore driving goes, this car might be just about perfect. So let's go. Okay. So I'm seated back in the driver's seat. Let's get my seatbelt on. Does this come with... Nice! So, one thing I missed out on earlier, LBX does come with adjustable height seatbelts, which is great. Many cars don't come with that, and I think that's always a bit of a bummer, because then, you know, sometimes the seatbelt rides up into your neck. But in any case, let's take the car for a drive. But before we do that, let's get some specifications out of the way, because that's what we usually do. So the LBX is of course a hybrid, and it is powered by a 1.5 litre 3-cylinder turbocharged engine mated to a CVT gearbox. So pretty standard stuff, pretty standard templates, and like I said, this is very closely related to a Toyota cousin. So you can go and Google or figure out which 1.5 litre 3-cylinder turbocharged engine, you know, or platform it comes from. But in any case, this is good for about 129 horsepower, 180 something Newton meters of torque. Can't really remember, 180 or 185. But generally speaking, when I was driving it over from, you know, over to the car park here, the car actually feels pretty punchy. But you don't really buy a car like that because it's punchy. You buy a car like that because it's luxurious, and it's also incredibly easy to drive, because right now I'm in a multi-story car park, which is, you know, the typical sort of dwelling that, or environment that a car like the LBX is probably going to be in. Whether you live in a condo complex or whether you live in a HDB, you're going to see a lot of these kind of environments. And right now I'm making my way out of the multi-story car park. You know, typically I start my reviews, or my driving portion of the review, I start it after I exit the car park, just because you know, there's one less thing to worry about. And some of the cars that we test are pretty large, so coming into this car park is sometimes a little bit scary. But almost to illustrate my point, the LBX is so easy to drive, so comfortable, so easy to drive, that I've virtually navigated this entire car park with just one hand. Could have been eating a sandwich while I did this. There we go, super comfortable. A lot of cars down here, so pretty much tighter and no problem at all. Now, one of the things that I think buyers should be kind of aware of is that although this is of course a Lexus, you know, like I said, still an entry-level Lexus, there are some compromises obviously to the way the car is built. And one of the compromises that I think you are going to want to know about is the fact that this car utilizes a torsion beam at the rear. So generally speaking, I think the car is quite well sorted. You know, it's in no way uncomfortable. But if I were to be really picky about the way the car feels, you can feel a difference between the way the front suspension reacts on humps and the way the rear suspension reacts on humps. Which means, don't go too fast over humps, because your rear passengers are likely going to jump a little bit, because the rear of the car is likely going to jump up a little bit, because the torsion beam is going to feel a little bit stiffer, a little bit more rigid, so to speak. So that's one thing to take note of. Aside from that, the car is actually really comfortable. In this stock tire setup with those really beautiful wheels, I think ride comfort is, you know, probably punching above its weight in this segment. And I think the drive is not going to surprise anybody. Obviously, the 3-cylinder up at higher speeds, it's going to feel a little bit less refined than a 4-cylinder. But honestly, you know, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that I think people who are, you know, after the whole Lexus experience, you know, they are after things like, you know, premium touches, certain level of comfort, ease of driving, fuel economy, because obviously Lexus and Toyota have one of the best hybrid systems on the market. In fact, when I started driving the car earlier, before all my idling of the engine during the photo shoot, the car was averaging 19.8 kilometers per litre, and on paper, the LBX states that it does, or it should do 19.6. So we were actually getting higher figures than what was on paper, which is something that is almost never ever heard of, right? Because, you know, usually the numbers that we get are a little bit poorer than what's stated. But in this case, number was actually higher than what was stated, which gives you an idea of how potentially how fuel efficient this car will be. And I want to also, you know, bring to everybody's attention that this is a test car after all. So being a test car, you know, I think my fellow journalists would have driven this car, you know, in a fairly there would be points where we would, you know, drive the car a little bit harder. On that note, for a 1.5 litre 3-cylinder turbocharged engine that produces 129 brake horsepower, I would say this car feels pretty brisk around town. Zero complaints whatsoever. You know, we're not expecting this car to be super fast anyway, so, you know, but at the same time we're not expecting it to be sluggish. So I think all that fits in perfectly. It's got a really nice almost like an NA feel to the car, which I think Lexus have always been very good at emulating in all their turbocharged cars. Even, you know, I remember the IS from a couple of years ago. First time I drove it, I was thinking to myself, whoa, for a turbocharged car, this feels surprisingly like an NA. So I think if you combine the two things that we've sort of touched on, combine the fact that this car feels super easy to maneuver around town and around tight spaces, coupled with the fact that it's, you know, it presents quite a peppy, upbeat, lively kind of drive, I think this is a wonderful car to own in Singapore if you do not require so much space in your car. So obviously, if you are, you know, if you have a full-size family, or not say a full-size family, but if your family members are all a little bit more grown up, kids are a bit more grown up, you require more space, then definitely this, you know, you might want to look away from this car. But if you have a young family and, you know, you really want to kind of move into this space of owning a premium Japanese vehicle, I think this is a wonderful option to look at, because it's reasonably priced for a Lexus. It looks exceptionally good from the outside. Interior, I would say pretty much in line with the rest of the Lexus range, you know, save some little bits that they borrowed from Toyota. Economy, really solid. I'm not even surprised if this car hits 20 kilometers per litre, that sort of levels. Of course, if you drive it a little bit more spiritedly, obviously you're going to get less, but, you know, if you take a very chill drive in this car, I think that's pretty cool. You're going to get some serious economy out of this car. So economical, easy to drive, reasonably comfortable as well. So honestly, aside from the space, I can't really see a bad thing about this car. And I think this is a really, really good start and a really promising template that I personally would like to see more of in Singapore. So obviously in Singapore, you know, we don't travel very long distances, so we don't need like massive like 3-litre cruisers. 1.5 litre small turbocharged engine, very, very good for Singapore driving, great for, you know, city environments, great for economy. And I think that's pretty much that. I think those are the things that make the LBX quite a good option to consider. And you know, like I mentioned earlier on in the review as well, you know, my perception of Lexus drivers, and you know, it's probably quite an accurate one, is that Lexus drivers are probably a little bit older, generally speaking, a little bit of the older demographic. I see a lot of them at my golf, like when I play golf. So a lot of Lexus drivers, and you don't see too many young people or young families driving Lexus cars. But obviously, if you look at the price point or the segment that the LBX sits in, this is actually a little bit more affordable than something like an X1 or a GLA. So if you are the sort of young family that's already looking for a GLA or X1, this might be something you need to consider. And once again, really good move by Lexus, because I think this opens the door for younger families, like my own one, to actually move into the idea or move into Lexus ownership. So that's all really positive. Now, if I have missed out anything about the car that you want to know about, you know, if I didn't talk about EV mode or whatever, and you want to find out something about the car, please put your questions in the comment section below. I generally try to reply those comments, but comments are increasing in volume, so do bear with me as I take some time to reply to these comments. We have just reached 1,000 subscribers, so thank you so much for your support, guys. I really, really appreciate it. Let's gun for more. Let's gun for 2,000 and then 10,000 and then so on and so forth. I do genuinely enjoy testing these cars and making these reviews for you guys, so I hope that you can give me your support and hit the subscribe button. Give this video a like as well, share with your friends. I'm sure somebody would like to know how wonderful the LBX is. But before we head off, once again, a gentle reminder: if you are a driver in Singapore and you're looking to either sell your used car for the best price possible or get an insurance renewal quote, please check out the links in the description box below. Those links are free to inquire, so if you need those services, please check it out. And with that, as usual, please take care of yourself, stay safe, and we'll see you next time. Bye bye.